hello, Christian Metal Group. My name is Jimmy Sarles, and we have Jay Goodwin here.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Yeah, we're part of the leadership team, and today we are talking to Doug Van Pelt. How are you doing?
Great. How are you guys?
We're doing great, man.
Doing great
Good
for
to be
sure.
here.
Always
Yeah.
good.
If y'all don't know who Doug Van Pelt is, you are
Under
new
a
to
rock.
Christian metal. uh, so we always like to start off with: did you grow up in a religious home?
Uh, no, it's an interesting story there. I guess my parents and grandparents all kind of were church-going people.
Hmm.
In a sense, they were religious, but they didn't take it serious, or it was kind of a compartmentalized part of their life. And so the Holy Spirit first kind of grabbed hold of my granddad, and
Okay.
my grandparents were farmers in Kansas. And
Hmm.
when they got born again and had a real relationship with Jesus, they really had a burning desire in their hearts to work with young people. So they left the farm and they moved to California, um, and started working with churches and young people. And what's funny is it was in Southern California, like right by Disneyland, and Garden Grove was where they lived.
Hmm.
And in one day, my granddad was in Big Bear Mountain, which is in LA, and he was kind of went up there for a retreat to talk to God, and he felt like God told him, "No, can't use you." He's like, "What? No, you hate somebody." And as soon as God
Wow.
said that, he pinpointed. He knew exactly the guy that God was talking about. So he booked the trip back to Kansas. He reconciled with that man, and then he came back, and his ministry with young people flourished. And he was in the epicenter of the Jesus movement, the whole thing with Calvary Chapel in the early days when they met in a tent, and
Right, right,
knowing
right.
Chuck Smith personally, and seeing all the and just having Bible studies in their house with packed with teenagers, and seeing um, just God at work with a full on revival that he got to be a part of after that step of obedience, which was kind of cool. And then the Holy Spirit kind of got a hold of my sister through my grandparents' influence. She was in high school, and she got saved. And my dad really watched her like a hawk. He really noticed a change in her life, and I guess he was skeptical at first. And there was a we were living in the Dallas area at the time, and there was this big event called Explo 72, which was put on by Campus Crusade for Christ.
Oh yeah, was that in Texas, right?
Yeah, it was in Dallas. It
Yep.
was where like three freeways met, and they had a
Yeah.
concert that I went to with like
My
100
pastor
to
was there.
200,000 people. Larry Norman
Yeah.
was there, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, believe it or not.
Actually, I have that album. That's
Do
that's
you?
pretty awesome, man. That you were
Yeah.
actually there.
And
That's awesome.
so anyway, what they did was they kind of gave teenagers who came from all over the country, and my grandparents parked in our driveway with their RV, and they had about half a dozen teenagers with them that had traveled to be there, and they would go in for discipleship and evangelism training during the day, and they would go witness on the streets of Dallas, and then Billy Graham would have a crusade event in the Cotton Bowl each night. And the teenagers in our house told my mom and dad, hey, you should go see Billy Graham. Here you can use our wristbands to get in, and they gave them their wristbands. And so my dad was taking my mom to see Billy Graham. They parked their car, and they were walking across the street, and there was like a T intersection. And as they were walking across, they were like the last bit of a group of people, and a policeman was blowing his whistle, and there was some drunk driver or somebody that was speeding through that intersection and was just going right to where they were. And my dad had all of his weight on his front foot. All he could do was push my mom out of the way, and he ended up
Wow.
on the grass, and the policeman
Yeah.
ran over to him. Are you okay? Are you okay? And my dad was like, yeah, who kicked me? He goes, nobody kicked you, sir. You're lucky the car didn't hit you, And
Oh wow.
they believe it was an angel who spared his life, so he could go into the crusade that night and hear Billy Graham preach a sermon, and he got saved. And so that's how kind of God got a hold of our family. I have another sister,
Awesome.
and then I was like 9 years old at the time, and but a couple years later, when we moved to Northern Virginia, we started going to a church, Calvary Hill Baptist Church in Fairfax,
Okay.
Virginia, right there on Route 236. And they had the Jesus movement was exploding. This was like 1974, and just young people were coming to Jesus in droves, and there was like a move of the Spirit. And so I got saved at that church. It was probably during a sermon about the rapture or the end times, and went forward at the altar call and was real serious about it. And I was kind of a young disciple for about 6 months. I was serious about reading the Word, and I was learning about praise and worship, and I was reading my Bible, and by the grace of God, God used me to lead two of my best friends to Christ. So I was like, I had the God working in my life, but for some reason, after about 6 months, I just kind of slid away, just kind of slowly but surely, kind of became my own boss as a young, teenager, and then so for 9 years, I was a prodigal son, and when I was age 20, in the middle of my college years, I came back to Christ. So that's kind of my long story in a nutshell.
That's cool.
Did I grow up in a religious family?
Yeah, no, we all have a journey that other people can relate to, so that's good.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about music. Did you grow up in a musical home at all?
It was kind of a typical American household as far as music went. None of us were musicians, so we didn't have that going on where somebody was jamming or playing an instrument in the house. Although my two sisters in junior high were part of the band. They played clarinet and flute, but I never. There wasn't a whole lot of music in the house. But we listened to the radio. My dad was served in the Air Force, and I remember when he came back from Vietnam, we were just bugging him as a family. Dad, you got to listen to Jesus Christ Superstar. It's this rock opera. It's amazing. And we had the album, and he listened to it.
Really?
That's kind of part of his testimony.
I literally listened to that album for the first time today.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes, I can't believe that's the one. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there was a local FM radio. FM radio was just starting to take off in like 1970, 71. And I would call up as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. I would call up the radio station and request "Temptation Eyes" by the Grassroots, and I would go to parties, and the other teenagers, military families would get together for barbecues or whatever. They didn't call them barbecues, and the kids would all hang out. And I remember the Led Zeppelin 3 album with a little wheel in it, and I was enthralled with like Deep Purple and Smoke on the Water, Led Zeppelin, and the Grassroots, and so very much into music as far as listening to it on the radio and whatnot. And so that's kind of the household we grew up in. One night, a funny story, in 1975, my parents made me and my sister go to church on New Year's Eve. There was going to be like a prayer through. They're going to pray through the new year. And I was listening to Casey Kasem's Top 100 Countdown Hits of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had a little mono earphone in my ear, and I was sitting in the back row, and my sister was like on the back row, but like 20 people over. And when it got down to midnight, I was like, "It's Crocodile Rock! It's Crocodile Rock!" Everybody in the church turned around and looked at me like, "You punk kid, what are you doing? Listen to the radio and you're shouting because you can't hear yourself."
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So, for those who don't know, just give us a brief history of kind of your musical journey as a Christian, getting into music. How did you get in? What did you kind of start with, and what did you involve into getting into harder rock or metal?
Right.
And then kind of how did that lead to the magazine and the band? If you want to tell about that.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for asking these questions, and I thank you in advance for bearing with me as I tell these long stories.
It's all good. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I'm glad it is, because I can't. It's hard to tell these in the short version, but so going back to when I was like in junior high, after growing up, like I told you, a little bit of influence, growing up listening to music and rock and roll. So in '74, when I came to the Lord as a youngster, there was a Billy Graham movie called Time to Run, and they had Christian bookstores back then. God rest their souls. Christian bookstores don't exist anymore, pretty much. But I bought the cassette tape for Time to Run, the soundtrack, and they had a Randy Stonehill song called "I Love You." It's on one of his albums, and anyway, I bought that, listened to it. So I knew there was Christian rock, and at our church we had kind of some rocky kind of special music from time to time. Some of the youth leaders and youth pastors had a band that was, 4 singers up there with, I guess they had a band behind them. I don't remember the band, and it certainly wasn't like, the heavy metal that I grew up and loved. But I knew that Christians listen to music. I went to Fishnet 76, I think, out in Front Royal, Virginia, and I think Andre Crouch and the Disciples was one of the big
Yeah.
headliner bands. And I remember people jumping up and down during his set. And I remember somebody was leaving to go pick somebody up or had to go get some groceries because they were all camping out, and they were like, "Don't listen to any secular music while you're out there."
Oh man.
So I kind of grew
Nice.
up, feeling and being a part of that landscape where Christians listened to Christian music and
Right.
secular music was bad. But I was like, I was in my prodigal state and I was into secular music. And the first album I bought was the Wild Cherry album, self-titled, that had Play That Funky
Yeah.
Music on it. And I
Oh
bought
yeah.
those greatest hits, and then I got Kiss Destroyer, and started building from there. Really got into Kiss in between like 8th grade and 9th grade. Moved to California because my dad in the Air Force got stationed out to California. It was in the middle of the Mojave Desert, where Edwards Air Force Base is, about 2 hours northeast of LA, and was listening to like Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin and Styx and all the bands that were kind of popular in '77. And I remember really wanting to go to some big concerts out there, like California Jam 2 had 200,000 people there, and they had Ted Nugent and Aerosmith and Frank and Reno
Oh
Moggy
wow.
and Hart, Santana, and all these bands. And my parents kind of knew, they'd heard through the grapevine what happened at rock concerts. And for those of you who don't know, for you kids, back in the '70s, as soon as the lights went out, the bowls and the joints lit up, and it was like a marijuana smoking session. And rock and roll was kind of a cultural thing. It was almost like a church. Marijuana was like the sacrament, and music was like the background, and it was kind of it's kind of a carryover from the hippie movement in the '70s. This whole hard rock thing.
Yeah.
I was like falling in love with all of that, and I was reading Circus and Cream magazines, and I was
Search is
learning
amazing.
how to treat other
Oh,
people
That's a
from
throwback.
interviews with Ted Nugent and Aerosmith, which wasn't a good godly influence. And so all in high
right.
school, the first concert I got to go to by myself, because my mom was sitting next to the Protestant chaplain's wife at our high school football game. We were on the junior varsity team my sophomore year, and there was a big concert with Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, Black Sabbath in Boston at Anaheim Stadium where the Angels play. And because Marty and Tom, who were like the biggest potheads in the school, were like raging, wild, screaming partiers, like top of their lungs, let everybody know what they were like. But their mom, I guess, didn't know that. And my mom thought, since they were like the chaplain's sons, I could go to this concert with them. And so I got a first exposure had no reference point for Black Sabbath until I saw them live. Saw the Grim Reaper in the crowd and people dressed weird and stuff. And of course, Van Halen was my favorite at the time. And this was their triumphant return to LA. They parachuted out of an airplane before they went on stage. The big DJ goes, "Van Halen's coming in from the sky." And we had to wait about 45 minutes before they finally landed and got on stage. But
That's
so I was
crazy.
full on into the metal scene, hard rock. 70s metal is what I grew up on. Judas Priest, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Aerosmith, this hard blues-based rock and roll.
Yeah.
Metal as we know. Well, Judas Priest kind of was. Black Sabbath and Judas Priest, kind of in Deep Purple, all Led Zeppelin, all introduced heavy metal in the 1970s, '69 even. Jimi Hendrix too.
And they're still playing too. I just saw Judas Priest with Alice Cooper, so
Yeah, and
all these years later.
still doing it well. So full on into that. Really loved metal. Went to college, and the thing I loved about college is I was away from my parents for the first time. So as an 18-year-old, I didn't have parental restrictions. I got to do what I wanted to do, go to concerts when I wanted to, and all
Right.
those things that went on to concerts I participated in. And so then, between my sophomore and junior year in college, I was back home in Florida where my parents lived, and I was working a job, and the guy I'd worked with the summer before had gotten right with the Lord during that time. His name was Greg, and he kind of took me on as a project. He was praying for me. He was fasting and praying for me. He was weeping over the
Amazing.
condition of my soul in prayer, and then he was sharing with me
Wow.
things about Jesus that I'd never heard before that intrigued me. Like, did you know, Doug, that when Jesus was dead on Friday, he went down to hell and he took the keys of death and hell from Satan and took them back. And he made a public display of his enemies. And, theologically, maybe that's debatable whether that really happened, but
Right.
that was just, it kind of drew me into like, wow, that's pretty intense, and that's cool. And so I was kind of edging closer towards back towards Christ, and my lifestyle was kind of bumming me out. There wasn't a really satisfaction in being able to do what I wanted to do, and I was
Right.
kind of looking for something, even though I didn't know what it was, and I didn't really want to think about God because deep down inside I knew He was real. Deep down inside I'd had some exposure to Christians being the happiest people on earth. So that was kind of in my subconscious. And one night, my friend Greg played a DeGarmo and Key song for me on their This Ain't Hollywood album, a song called You Gave Me All. And the lyrics were like, I knew your rules and I read your book, but my heart was as cold as steel. I learned how to pray, but I did not kneel. And that kind of described me.
Wow.
And so that night, as I was thinking, I've got to make a resolution to God that I'm gonna, quit taking drugs and live a pure lifestyle. And
Yeah.
and as I was thinking about it, and it's just in my mind, there was a pen on the ground. You go, see that pen on the ground? That pen writes underwater, sideways, upside down. Astronauts could probably take that pen to space. Here, you want it? And I thought to myself, yeah. I thought I'll write the resolution with this pen when I get home. And when I cried for the first time in years in prayer, kind of, and didn't say the typical sinner's prayer, I don't think, but just really was kind of, making a decision that I was going to follow Christ. And I wanted to make a resolution because I didn't want it to be like falling off the wagon every couple of months and having to get saved over and
Yeah.
over again. So I was like, this is like and I was counting the cost, and it's like, do I really want to give these things up? I don't know, because I really enjoy these things. But anyway, so I come home, and the Bible I'd been reading that day, shocker, was closed on the table. I left it open, and there was a card
Yeah.
sticking out of it. And I thought, oh, that's cute. My mom or dad must have written me a card. I opened up the card, and it was blank. Just a blank card. So I thought, okay, the resolution time. Got the pen, got the card. But wait a minute. What about my friends, Pat and Steve, back in California? They need to accept Christ. If they died, they might go to hell. I better write this letter to them. Well, wait a minute. What do I do? This resolution thing is really important. What should I do, God? And I did the hunt and peck method. I went, don't worry about the speck in your brother's eye when there's a log in your own. First, take care of the speck in your eye, and then you can see clear the log in your eye, and then you can see clearly take the speck out of your brother's eye. So that was like, okay, there's my answer. I wrote the resolution, kind of surrendered to Christ and never looked back. And then slowly but surely started going and seeking and finding Christian rock. Larry Norman was early on the list, and Petra, and even Michael O'Mardian's White Horse album, which is a dark horse, kind of a killer album. It's kind of an art rock prog album that nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I came back to college and got settled into a church and some Christian fellowships on the campus of the University of Texas, and got serious about God and started growing as a disciple and collecting Christian rock. And I had some good friends who introduced me to like Jerusalem and the Daniel Band and Rez Band and Jeff Johnson, who did these art rock projects, like a mixture between Pink Floyd and Alan Parsons. Really cool, lyrically themed albums based upon classic books like George MacDonald and C.S. Lewis and some of those writers. Excuse me. And so that led me into writing Christian rock album reviews in the school newspaper. The University of Texas has like 50,000 undergrads, and they have a paper called the Daily Texan, which is still printed today. And
Oh, nice.
so I was able to do reviews, like I was reviewing like Rick Kua and Leslie Phillips and stuff in there. And then the summer of '84 came around, and I heard about Stryper, and I went to L.A. and stayed at my grandparents' house to work at the Olympics and also to sell advertising for this marketing company that did work on college campuses. So I got to see Stryper before Yellow and Black Attack came out. So I'm at Radio City Music Hall in Anaheim, and they were like phenomenal. And I just
That's
fell in love
amazing.
with their sound, their songs, so awesome. And so I came back and was writing more album reviews, and I reviewed Stryper, of course. And then Stryper did a short little Texas tour where they played 5 cities like Corpus Christi, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin, I think. And so the student newspaper says, hey, their publicist is bugging the crap out of us. This guy named Rick Orienza of Enigma Records. He's a really good publicist. Worked his butt off for Stryper. And sorry, we got a timer going off in the background.
Yeah.
No worries.
So they asked me, hey, do you want to do an article on Stryper? So that was the first time I ever did an interview over the phone, recorded the phone call using the James Bond device. It was like a little suction cup that went on the side of the telephone, and the other was a jack, my tape recorder.
Yeah.
I had to transcribe what I had recorded on the tape and make it a feature article style for the newspaper. And so that came out the day of their show. And so that was kind of a foot in the door. And sometime around that winter, I was reading an underground fanzine called Acme, which stood for Alternative Christian Music Enthusiast. And they were sharing some news about some metal band, probably Messiah Prophet or Daniel Band or somebody. And they said, you know, with the advent of Christian metal, somebody should start a Christian metal fanzine. You could do a lot of good work and you'd have a lot of fun along the way. And I thought, wow, I could do that. So I prayed about that for about 6 months and asked for advice from people. And I got permission from one of my school groups to use the mimeograph machine if I wanted to. So, you know, those the machines that ran off tests in high school and everybody smelled the mimeograph. Right. I was going to use one of those for my first few issues. I ended up not doing that, going that route. But as the summer started to get close and the semester ended, a friend of mine named Kerry Womack, who went on to form One Bad Pig, he said, hey, I'm going to the Cornerstone Festival again this year. He'd been to the first one in '84. Why don't you print that first issue of this magazine and I'll pass them out as a promotion? So that's kind of the shove out the front door. They got me started with Heaven's Metal. Within 2 or 3 months before the summer was over, I had 300 subscribers. And I took out some classified ads in CCM and a bunch of the other underground Christian rock alternative zines. And I took out an ad in Kerrang, which just so happened to be, unbeknownst to me, it was their 100th issue. The first issue they were going to print not only in the UK but in the US, so they had 100,000 more copies than ever before for their 100th issue with Motley Crue on the cover and a big 100 on it. So my classified ad was in there. That was like another little sign. Besides all the subscribers coming in just a few months, they kind of showed that I was onto something and maybe God was really blessing me with this. And I didn't have any investment capital. I didn't ask for money or investments and didn't have any to. So I only grew as I could afford to grow. So the subscription money that came in helped pay for the print bills over at Kinko's or Xerox type copy place. And I would mail those out and handwrite to the subscription list on a piece of paper and keep track of every person's subscription. And so what happened is I got in on the ground floor of a movement, Christian heavy metal, and the movement exploded over the next couple of years, and I got to grow with it. So there's another nutshell, long drawn-out story about how metal came to be.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you actually just mentioned something that I was going to ask for my next question, so we're going to go for it. Obviously, Christian metal started out really small. Shout out to Oz Fox. He was on the first cover, of course, of Heaven's Metal. And, of course, Stryper reigned for a while. So I would say a lot of the early bands, of course, were into that glam metal, hair metal, whatever else type of scene. But, of course, at the end of the 80s, like thrash metal was already taken off at that time in the secular world for sure. And there were a couple of Christian thrash bands. But towards the end of the 80s, like thrash metal reigned supreme. And then there were all kinds of other bands coming out, both in secular and Christian music. And of course, we're talking about before HM came to be, but what was your approach to changing with the times, especially as rapidly as things were changing for the metal scene?
That's a great question. That was a lot of fun, and it kind of came with the territory, dealing with entertainment and my own upbringing. Listen to the bands that were kind of the roots of heavy metal, but weren't really what we consider heavy metal. Black Sabbath is kind of a blues rock band, and so is Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, but and Jimi Hendrix too. But the electric guitar is the common denominator in all of that. So even through, fast forward, we can get into later about the stylistic changes with HM, but just the evolution of metal that was happening. The one core element that I was always attracted to, and that I just instinctively knew, was part of this whole sound. No matter if you're going from melodic to prog rock, art rock to thrash and speed metal, and then death metal later, the electric guitar, was like the key element that kind of held all those things together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the first couple of years, with Christian metal, there wasn't anything thrash that came out. I think the
Right.
first thrash band that most historians would probably point to is a three-piece that were based out of Ohio, I believe, called Tempest. This guy
Yeah.
named Warren Harris, this
Oh.
big guy. I think he was the bass player. I don't think he was a guitar player. But they had this, and you can find this tape in the underground or digitally somewhere, but it's the original Tempest. And I have a funny story about Jamie Rose band Tempest I'll tell in a minute. But this band was like so intense and rough and brutal and fast. And they were just taking on, Satan and Lucifer in their lyrics, kind of a combative spiritual warfare
Yeah.
type approach. And it's funny because Warren, what was his last name? Haynes? I don't think it was. The singer the leader for this band was a musician on this televangelist show. Oh gosh, what was his name? I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. I want to say, I can't remember it. I'll think of it later. But he was on his show, and for a while there, he kind of gave up his rock and roll, and of course, his style of music was extreme rock, extreme metal. And he
Is
was
that
playing metal music.
Phil Pierce? Is that or Marco Schaefer? That's who. Is it one of those you were thinking of?
No, the
No.
evangelist, Ernest Angsley. That's his name.
Oh,
Ernest Angsley.
interesting.
Old guy.
Okay.
He was old back then in the '80s, and
Oh.
and by that time, Warren, I think it was Warren Harris was the bass player's name. He was kind of having doubts about whether he should really be doing if God really wanted him to do this thrash thing. So he was kind of hemming and hawing. One reason why his band, and that tape was called "Annihilation of the Wicked," and it started off with like a little laughing box, like a little
Yeah.
toy. It's like I am Satan. It is
Yeah.
really goofy but funny thing, and just real intense music. And so that was early on, and there was a band called 100% Proof over in England. This kind of had AC/DC kind of sound.
I have that
Very
album.
raw, not really thrashy, but dirty guitars, as opposed to the clean harmonies of Daniel Band or Striper or whatnot. By the way, here's a picture of that first issue with Oz Fox on the cover,
Yeah.
taken at that show in Austin. Then
That
in
is
85.
rad.
That was in our 40th anniversary issue that Jimmy
Yes.
helped out a lot with this,
Yeah.
throughout the summer.
That was so much fun. Yeah.
But thrash was a transition. You had like Believer and Deliverance and Vengeance, and then Vengeance Rising. They changed their name to. That really threw a lot of people for a loop. Not most of us, because we understood it. Even though I covered music that was popular, just like a true metalhead, I think understands different styles and hybrids and different offshoots of metal. But some of the parents and some of the people that were like,
Whoa.
they were so progressive to accept long hair and makeup and spandex, but then when they saw moshing and stage diving at these hardcore thrash shows, it was like, whoa, hold on a second, we've come too far now. And that was kind of a fun controversy to have to kind of navigate through with some of the naysayers. But my audience wasn't the naysayers. My audience was the kids who liked this kind of music.
Right.
I was
right.
speaking to them, so I didn't get in a lot of arguments or fights or debates with people because I knew where to go if I wanted to get an argument or debate. But why bother? I had an audience to write for, and so I kind of tried to diligently and faithfully do that. Hope that answered your question about thrash and evolution of.
Yeah. No, that was cool. That's cool. All good.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes I like to do this for fun. So we like to play like is Wikipedia or Discogs correct? Because a lot of these times people can just go on there and put whatever. So I don't know. I think it's fun. So in For Lust Control, now it says you released your first album in 1988. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and not on a label, which self-release in 1988, I'm sure was probably pretty unheard of. I mean, most bands they were like, we got to get signed. It's all they knew how to do, right?
Well, our original goal for Lust Control was let's do a fun project and throw it out in the Christian underground and see what happens. And so we got together, and the other three guys in the band were Philip Owens of One Bad Pig, Paul Kubek of One Bad Pig, Maury Milliken, who was our associate pastor at Mission Hills Church, which kind of had a rock and roll kind of worship.
Yeah.
So they were like three really tight musicians. These are the kind of people that could, oh, one of your band members is sick. Okay, do you want me to fill in? Okay, they could actually do it. Like, to me, that seems impossible to be able to learn somebody's music in a whole set within a matter of a day. But these are the kind of musicians. They're that quality musician. And so here I was, a no talent musician, can't even hold a note or sing in the right key, but I can scream and yell with passion.
Yeah, there we go.
So we got together at rehearsals to try to do this thing, and at first we were going to call our band Talking Ass. And the name of the album was going to be Stop Hitting Me, which is the story of Balaam's donkey. That's
Right.
what Balaam said to Balaam, is stop hitting me, bro. We actually, I think, had all of our songs down. We would rehearse them. So we'd have like a 2 or 3 hour rehearsal. We would write 3 songs in that rehearsal. Over the course of 3 rehearsals, we had 9 to 10 songs, and we were ready to go in the studio and record. And we just used a local sound man who really knew his stuff, a guy named Steve Allen, and you could read his story in some of the liner notes of like our reissues of the first album and the second album.
Cool.
And anyway, but the name Talking Ass was going to get us in trouble, and the deacon, one of the deacons in our church, took me out to lunch at Red Lobster and says, Doug, I implore you, please change the name of the band. Maury is our associate pastor, and
Wow.
he can't be associated with a name and that. And he not only had a problem with, the
Word
name,
ass.
the word ass, the word for donkey, but also some of the topics we brought up in our lyrics, which I guess he'd heard some of it. But one of the things he said was, you're a creative guy, Doug. Come up with a new name. So that was kind of enough of an encouragement and kind of a reasonable request that I went and looked at the lyrics. And one of the lyrics that Paul wrote, Mad at the Girls, was, I want to control my lust, but my mind I cannot trust. I'm mad at the girls, mad at the girls, mad at the girls, I'm mad at myself. So I control lust. Hey, lust control. And then I told Paul about that, and he says, well, okay, if we're going to call the band Lust Control, the name of the first album has to be an inside joke that my buddy Ron Bronson came up with, and that's, This Is a Condemnation.
Yeah.
That was the name of the first tape,
Yeah.
and we recorded it live to 2-track. The recording session, we went to a rehearsal complex where bands would pay money to go in and be able to rehearse. They had like a sound system, and there was even a booth with a glass window that had like a soundboard in it. And so we went in there and recorded live to 2-track. And after we're done, I'm screaming my voice out. After 3 hours, the next band, who is some secular band from Austin, comes walking in, singer with a girl on his shoulder and smoking a joint, walking through the hallway, and they're starting to set up, and we have to tear down. And Steve pulls us into the control room and says, dude, we tested out the recording when we started, but we never hit record for the whole session.
Oh, no.
So we were like, okay, when is this band done? Okay, they're going to be done at midnight. And okay, so they were like, okay, Doug, you take a vow of silence for the next 4 hours. We'll come back here at midnight and we'll knock this out. So from midnight to 3 or 4 a.m., we recorded This Is a Condemnation, and it came out. And back in the day, this is 1988, and Christian bookstores had like this magical shepherd named Mike Delaney. He worked for the biggest one-stop distributor in the world for Christian music and Christian things, called Spring Arbor, based up in Michigan. And they not only sold choir robes and Amy Grant and bread and grape juice and what frisbees with the name Jesus on it, but they sold music, Amy Grant and Stryper and whatnot. And Mike was a music buyer, and one thing he did, which he had the freedom to do in his job, is he he read all these underground fanzines, and he read Heaven's Metal, and all the new bands he heard about. Cross Force from San Francisco, Tempest, Annihilation of the Wicked. I'm sure he got them, and he would buy copies of it, and they would be in the catalog. And every Christian bookstore in the world would get these blue pieces of plastic called microfiche, and they would get like because everybody ordered from the store because, like I said, they could get anything, and so bookstores got packages from Spring Arbor every couple of days out of the week, and in every box there was usually some microfiche that has some of the new titles in it, and so the people that worked in Christian bookstores like us who loved radical music, we would get that microfiche and search through there and order stuff. Anyway, so he ordered, I think he ordered 400 copies of This Is a Condemnation. And the day that hit the warehouse, that album became the buzz of the warehouse. Like, Jimmy would call up Jay, hey, check out this title, the SKU number 1247. Oh my gosh, is that really the name of it? Yeah, it is. Giggle, 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 giggle. It became the warehouse. And so Mike gets called in to the vice president of sales in his office. And he says, Mike, you got to return these. It has the condom on the title. And so his livelihood was, under pressure. So he called me up and says, Doug, I'm so sorry. I have to do this. I have to return these, And whenever you manufacture, I think we made 1,000 copies of that, or maybe 500. I can't remember. But whenever you manufacture and you have a sale like 400 units, you're depending upon those sales to be money back in your pocket, which pays for everything. But so he calls me up and says, I'm so sorry, Doug. Is there anything I can do for you? And I said, actually, Mike, there is. All the stores get these packages from Spring Arbor every few days. Not only do you have the microfiche, but you have these flyers.
Right.
They print flyers on colored Xerox paper, like the new book by Tex Mars on the Rapture.
Yeah.
I want a flyer for Heaven's Metal. Yeah. And he's like, done. And so I sent him the artwork, and they printed it out. And the response to that was so overwhelming that the magazine buyer leans over Mike's shoulder and says, hey, can I take this title on, Mike? And he's like, yes. And so that is how Heaven's Metal got on newsstands all over the world because of my band and that fiasco with that first release.
That's awesome.
Crazy. What an interesting thing. So, I think about, I definitely very, very vividly remember the article that you did in Heaven's Metal, or I think it was HM by this time, called "I Was in Lust Control." And of course, you all wore masks and all this other kind of stuff. So you all had your identity secret. I know part of that was like because of the other guys being in other bands partially.
Yeah,
most likely. But dude, like, I remember you speaking about like maybe the response from the readers. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what was people's response to finding out that you actually were not nameless or faceless after all?
That's kind of crazy and funny. And you know what is, I saved all the letters. We used to get, mail. People would order, we sold the cassettes for $7 each. And so somebody would write a check for $7 and fill out their name and address. And then they would order the next one that came out a year later and tell us about what they thought about the album. So the response was like awesome. We had a song called The Big M, which was it spoke about nobody talks about. Yeah, the chorus is just like in your face, in your face as in your face can be, and which kind of fit perfectly with our whole experiment with doing this band. Let's do something radical. Let's try to do something crazy and extreme and see where it goes. And and it was funny that we played Cornerstone in '89 when our second album, which was called Dancing Naked, came out. And Paul wrote that song about King David dancing naked before the ark when they brought the ark back in Jerusalem, and his wife scolded him about how he made a vulgar display in front of all the townspeople that day. But it was pure worship for David, and his wife got cursed. She wasn't going to have any babies the rest of her life because of what she said. Kind of like, God didn't take too kindly with her attitude about the whole thing. But with that album, when that one came out, they had a thing called the New Band Showcase. For over a 4-day festival, they had 4 bands play each day. So 30-minute sets, so like a 2-hour block in these big metal barns where Cornerstone used to be in Grace Lake, Illinois. And so we sent in our tape in to be considered for that. And what they have is they have a bunch of music guys, kind of like us, but that inner circle of Mike Delaney and some of the people from Cornerstone Magazine and the festival would come together for one crazy weekend where they would listen to 300 demos and say, nope, 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 yes, play the next song. Let's keep going. Yeah. They would pick the 16 bands who would play,
Interesting.
plus a couple alternates. And so I knew when that weekend was. I think I knew because I'd done that process before, maybe the year before, maybe not. But I knew when the weekend was. The weekend had come and gone, and I didn't get a phone call. So I called up Mike Delaney, who makes a return to my storytelling session, and said, "Hey, Mike, what happened?" He goes, "Oh yeah, when we all wanted Lust Control to play, but Bob Bruner, who worked for Pure Metal Records, says, oh yeah, we've got these guys under contract." And I said, Mike, hold on a second. Yes, they sent us a contract. I've got a copy of it right here, and there's like red marks all over it. I'm not going to sign this deal. It's just a horrible contract. And it's really true that the Christian rock contracts were like old black contracts from like the 40s and 50s, where they just ripped off these people who didn't know the business world. Yeah. And they just changed the contracts. They kind of recycled these old contracts that were completely unfair.
They Christianized them.
Yeah. And so I said, Mike, they might have thought they were going to get a sign, but I've already told them, no, we're not going to sign. I'm not going to sign this deal. And Mike was like, okay, let me make some phone calls. So Mike called the committee up, and they're like, okay, let's put Lust Control in. So you know what that means? I don't know who it was, but one of those 16 bands who were told yes on Monday got a phone call on Wednesday that says, I'm sorry.
Oh, snap.
You're not playing. So I don't know who that was. I don't want to know who that was, but bless their hearts, they didn't get to play, and we did. But we heard rumors that like Kevin and Dave from White Throne Magazine, they were going to storm the stage and rip off our masks and reveal our identity.
Oh my God!
So we had security back there, and we told the guy that was like our manager, he just for that show, don't let anybody back here. I don't care who it is. You know, Glenn Kaiser's walking back there because he prays with all the new band artists because they're young and they want to learn how to be a disciple. And Curtis was like, no, Glenn, sorry, closed off. You can't come. So we had this thing sealed off, and we had duct tape around our ski masks so nobody could tear them off. And we had like a rental car waiting outside. As soon as we were done, we jumped in that car and sped off. And there was a car driving next to us parallel with the camera, taking pictures of us as we were taking our masks off.
Wow, so, that's quite a story. I will say this is the first interview we've done where somebody mentioned microfiche. That's true.
As well.
So the band that I remember that nobody knew who they were for a long time was Neon Horse when they came out.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of all secretive and all. So I remember there was a festival in Georgia when I ran the South Carolina Rock for Life chapter. And I went and set up, I set up a booth there, and, Spoken, 238, all these bands. And there was a guy that sold CDs, and he said, I tell you what, if you help me pack these up, I'll give you 5 free CDs. I was like, you're on. And The Worst of Lust Control was the first one I picked up. And so that was kind of like my real introduction to the band.
Nice.
And so, and then I know I did crowdfund also Pink Little Dots or Little Tiny Dots when it came out.
Yeah.
The pink dots on it. So I was going to say, were you aware that the band actually still has a MySpace?
Yeah, I mean, I started one and never deleted it. But
yeah, it's still there.
I'm sure it hasn't updated in a decade or two.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
No doubt. And so I wanted to read this a couple sentences from Wikipedia. This is pretty awesome here. CCM Magazine has called Lust Control the Dosh McDowell of the Christian rock world. Musically, they have been likened to the Ramones or the Dead Milkmen. The band formed as a joke and was not meant for a long-term exposure, which has led to some to refer to it as the Christian version of Spinal Tap. I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting description there.
Yeah.
So
sure.
We had a song on Dancing Naked called John Still. And John Still was the editor of CCM. CCM was like the flagship magazine that covered all kinds of Christian music from gospel to heavy metal.
Yeah.
And we had a song. It was like John Still, put us on the cover or never see your mother again. It was like that short. And
Nice.
at that time, CCM magazine, like everything else in Christian music, was based in Southern California. But he moved to Nashville because he saw the writing on the wall that the Christian music industry was going to migrate to Nashville. But his staff was still in California, and they would have staff meetings using the speakerphone back in the day. And he said, "Dude, Lust Control came out with a song called John Still. Let me play it for you." And he played
That's
it.
awesome.
They all had a riot. And there's so many funny, goofy Lust Control stories because it was such a off the wall band that kind of catered to weird things happening to them.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, lust control was definitely very, obviously we talked about masturbation already, with the Big M and, just some of the other songs.
Planned
You make
Parenthood,
me,
you ain't no good.
right, You Make Me Puke was a favorite. I think, trying to think, my first lust control album was the one that one was on. I'm trying to think, it was,
We are not
God,
ashamed.
We Are Not Ashamed. That was my first lust control album, for sure. There was a song on there called "Speaking in Tongues,"
Oh yeah.
um, and yeah. So I know that um, obviously it referenced to speaking in tongues and just the charismatic movement overall. What influenced you all to put that in there? And I guess I'll just preface that with I know that many bands were very um, general, I guess, when it came to beliefs. When it comes to songs that were very general, it was very rare that you had people delving into topics that were more denomination specific.
Yeah.
So you have to tell us about that, this that subject matter and what influenced that song.
Well, that's a song I wrote. I took Lust Control seriously. It's kind of like a ministry for me, and the ministry kind of took on a focus to speak about subjects that a lot of ministries didn't focus on. Namely, that was like sexual sin or purity
Right.
or sexuality from a biblical viewpoint, and how to
Yeah.
navigate that, and to try to help young people in a world that was drunk sexually.
Yeah.
So I was kind of focused, but so we were kind of bent towards doing the controversial or saying something no one else would say. You know, it was kind of like almost getting a thrill out of that. And there's kind of an adrenaline rush whenever you do something that's brave, like you talk about Jesus in public, or you go on stage, even if it's not has anything to do with ministry, or you're an athlete and you step out on the field or the court. You get these butterflies and you're nervous because there's a certain amount of bravery where you have to take the fear and just swallow it and just run with it
Right.
and go. And
Sure.
so that's kind of an attitude I took. And so anyway, with the song "Speaking in Tongues," it certainly wasn't the first. Um, it was probably fourth or fifth or maybe 10th time we tackled a subject that was extremely sensitive or not talked about much. But yeah, I wrote that song just to kind of I didn't care about playing it safe, and a lot of bands do that because it makes sense, to not divide your audience over a
Right.
divisive issue. But it kind of like that was like par for the course with Lust Control. When we were recording that album, We Are Not Ashamed, we took a handful of songs from the first two albums. This is Condemnation and Dancing Naked, like the Big M, Mad at the Girls, You Make Me Puke,
Hmm.
Planned Parenthood, but we recorded a bunch of new songs, and so Speaking in Tongues was one of them. And Doug Pinnick of King's X came out to visit the studio. I think I asked for an album that he had. He was going to give me or something. So he came to the studio and he heard us tracking that song and he kind of thought it was cool.
Hmm.
So that was kind of fun to have a celebrity come by
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
somebody that talented too, and acknowledge that your music had something of value to it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of a weird song. It's kind of like a funky kind of vibe, kind of a chiming guitar
Yeah.
sound to it. And but there's one of many doctrines, I guess, I hold to that's a little bit controversial.
Hmm.
Just felt like sticking my neck out there and doing it.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that at all. I was just, You know, I was just curious. That's all. That's a great stuff. Like that album was a classic for sure. So hey, you know,
Yeah,
and I
one of the
know
most
that obviously, huh?
well, the most important song I've ever written in even the early days up to now, is a
Mm.
song I wrote for that album called "If You Fail," and
Yeah.
it was part of a trilogy. I had the song like the Big M, which was like you know,
Mm.
hey, pointing my finger at you or pointing my finger at this subject. And then they had this. The second song was Deliverance, which basically says, God can set you free from any
Right.
type of bondage, like any sort of addiction or bondage. God is the deliverer; He can set you free, which is controversial. That's one of the other controversial topics that I wrote about. But I wanted to write a song that kind of answered that. Like when somebody points a finger, and it might bring conviction. The Holy Spirit convicts us of sin. So you've got conviction, and then you've got actual uh, another step further to help somebody break free. Some sin um, has a wrap around somebody, like a snake or something, or
Yeah.
grave clothes, and it takes some effort. There's more power necessary from God to break that person and set them free. And so that song kind of shared the message that you can be free. But then I knew that some people go through that process. They get convicted, they get set free, and they fall back in. They get convicted, they get set free, they fall back in. Convicted, set free, fall back. And it's this downward spiral of like depression. And it's like, how do I address that? So I wrote a song called "If You Fail,"
Yeah.
which talked about failure and how failure is not final, that God's work isn't done with us, He's not through
Amen.
with it. And I spent a year writing that song,
Wow.
and then when this came time to put it all together, it just kind of flowed uh,
Hmm.
together. And so to me, that's like um, the most important song I've ever written because it's just so much about grace, and that's
Yeah.
really what I wanted Lust Control to be known for, above all else. Besides all the flash in the pan and the crazy weirdness, that was kind
Oh,
of a
that's
consistent
awesome.
theme.
Yeah, I really I came into, I guess I started subscribing to HM after it had changed from Heaven's Metal. So that was an interesting journey, and you're changing with the times. You're not just covering just straight metal anymore. You're covering hard rock and just it's a much larger audience and everything, and that's amazing. But I found it really interesting how, as a magazine, you actually got to get in to the music of releasing music, with partnerships and everything, the compilations. And so, like, according to what I'm looking at, it's the Heaven's Metal Collection was the very first one in 1992. Was that the first time that you actually released something?
No, that came on the heels of a cassette tape called Cool Tunes,
Oh,
and it had like
okay.
a metal side and an aluminum side.
Oh,
Where the metal
nice.
had like bands like Guardian and
Oh
Deliverance,
gosh,
Believer,
I
and the
gotta
aluminum.
find that. I gotta find that, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I got a bunch of those still that we sell on our store. But
Oh, do you? Okay.
yeah, and my friend Paul Kupek, he kind of said, Doug, you need to make a name for yourself. Put Doug Van Pelt Presents Cool Tunes. So that's what it has on the cover. And just sold that cassette through the mail order. And of course, Spring Arbor bought a bunch of copies, and it was a manufactured cassette on like a clear shell with the writing on it,
Okay.
and the printing and shrink wrapped and everything. Um, so that came out first, but then I think the Heaven's Metal collection was next, and Star Song said, will you put together a box set? So I got to handpick 31 artists. I started with the old stuff like Resurrection Band and
Messiah Prophet. I have this on
Yeah,
cassette.
prophet.
I have the
Leviticus,
cassette, the box
Jerusalem.
set. Yeah.
Man, so this is
That
interesting. I think
that's
about Messiah
awesome.
Prophet. I saw that album cover, of course, like a lot of people did.
Yeah,
Thought that was the coolest thing.
Master
But
of Metal.
yeah, man, yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, by the time I actually got a chance to listen to it, I had already moved on to like extreme metal. So,
Yeah.
oh well, I missed it all.
Yeah. But
I
then
missed
you
that era.
so then you had Heaven's Metal Video Magazine Volume One. I guess that's a VHS, which
Yeah,
actually is pretty cool that you had Slam Cat on there. We interviewed
Wow,
him
cat.
earlier this year, so that's awesome.
very cool.
Uh, and then you had the hard music compilation. And then I've actually got three or four of these VHS that I've collected over the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
me too. How about that?
Do you? Awesome, man.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
got
know
6 of
that.
those.
Nice.
yeah.
And then you were actually So according to your Discogs, I'm just wondering if these are correct. And I know you didn't play on all these, but it has you listed as having a credit for some type of something to do with the band, right? So this is where we're seeing like, is this correct?
Okay.
All right. So you got Mortification, 10 Years Live Not Dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mephibosheth.
Uh huh.
When I was over in Australia, I was telling Steve, I kind of went on didn't go on tour with them, but I guess it kind of was a tour. We went from their home in Melbourne and played a show, I think, in Wollongong and Brisbane, and then up towards Sydney where the Black Stump Festival was, which is like the Australian
Oh, yeah.
version of
I've heard
Cornerstone.
about that, and they
Really
they
good
say
fest.
they miss it because they don't have anything now.
Wow.
Right.
Giant
Unfortunately.
main stage with tons of people there.
Yeah.
But I said, there's this story in the Bible between David and Jonathan where they make a covenant, and then Jonathan's son Mephibosheth becomes the benefactor of that covenant. But that name Mephibosheth, it just screams Mephibosheth. We should make a death metal song. So we got out the pen and started cranking out the lyrics, and we co-wrote that song. I still get royalties for Mephibosheth. I got like a statement for $4.15 last
Yeah,
month.
heck yeah.
Oh, that's
They don't
pretty
send you a
cool,
check
man.
unless it's over 15 or 20, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
wow.
That is amazing.
Jay's actually got to go over there and meet him
Yeah, I was
too.
about to say. You
Yeah.
and I are definitely two of the people that from the United States that have been to Steve Rowe's house.
Yeah,
Right on.
that's awesome. Yeah. So and then Pound Hound
Yes.
on Metal
Oh
Blade.
wow,
Yeah.
that got me on the artist team at the annual flag football game at GMA.
Nice.
Gospel Music Week, would have like all the people in the Christian music industry would come to Nashville for a week of seminars and showcases and hearing and luncheons and hearing about the new product. Radio people, publications people, singers, songwriters that want to learn more about that craft would all come. A few hundred, maybe a few thousand people would descend upon Nashville for a week. It would culminate in the Dove Awards, and on a Thursday, and the Thursday was kind of dead up until that nighttime. So I did a flag football game, and it was artist versus industry finally meet on a level playing field, which kind of insinuates that the industry is always ripped off the artist. But anyway, the rule was in order to be on the artist team, you have to have been on a CD within the last year. And so that Pound Hound album, I was on the CD because I left a voicemail message on Doug Pinnick's phone, and I said, "Hey, this is Dave McManus of Faith Tabernacle Mission Crusade Deliverance Temple Healing Ministry Center in Jesus Name Limited," and
Nice.
and he
I
liked that
remember
voicemail
that.
and he put it on his album.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Wow, I remember that.
That was 2001. And then you got Striking First Strike. Maybe.
I don't know if that's accurate.
Okay. Paradox, Power and Glory.
I helped put that on vinyl, but I never sang in the studio or did anything in the recording process.
That's interesting that yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's never always correct.
Right.
I wrote the
Okay.
liner notes for the vinyl reissue.
Oh, maybe that's it. It could be that.
Yeah.
You got Paradox Ruler on
Same
Retroactive Records.
Yeah, that one came out first.
Okay, and then Striking Precious Metal box set.
I wrote the liner notes for that and helped with that, so that's what that's all about.
Oh, nice. We just got a couple more. Treasure Seeker, A Tribute to the Past.
Wow. I must have wrote some liner notes for that.
Yeah.
Line
And then
note guy, yeah.
a compilation called A Cat-Shaped Hole in My Heart.
Oh wow, that was like a mainstream compilation album to raise funds for rescue centers and places that rescued specifically cats.
Oh, okay.
And you sent in a photo of your cat, and I had a white Persian with blue eyes, and
Yeah.
a photo of him in a bluebonnet field, which is like the Texas state flower, and they used that for the CD booklet. So,
Oh, wow.
nothing musical about that, but that's what
Well,
that's about.
It says year unknown, so maybe you could help Discogs out with that one day.
Yeah, good. That's probably
And then the last one is the Mortification again, but it's the best of 5 years compilation.
yeah.
Same credit.
That's
so
the
that's
one
really
that's still
cool, man.
selling. It was on the Primitive Rhythm Machine album,
Yes.
which
Yes,
long
nice.
been out of print, but it's been reissued a couple times by Retroactive and places. That was a
That's
really good
awesome.
album.
Yeah,
Oh,
very cool,
absolutely.
man.
But
Yeah, very cool. So HM definitely had a lot of different articles and reviews. I mean, I read everything. I discovered a lot of bands via HM. I got so many questions about the interviews. I mean, not the interviews. Well, that too, but also just the reviews and even the advertisements. I think that um, one of my favorite things was to like find what bands were advertising in HM and Heaven's Metal, and I got so many, uh, things via mail order from different bands from like
yeah,
looking at those ads for sure. So that was really cool. Um, so one thing that you all did, like every once in a while, was that you would spotlight, like stuff like hip hop. But I think more importantly, you would spotlight some of the like gospel groups and both like past and present that maybe influenced like the beginnings of metal and and overall. I remember you all did an article on Robert Randolph, and then
Oh
also
man, I love Robert Randolph.
yeah,
yeah.
and also I think I did a couple of reviews of his albums, and then also the Blind Boys.
Oh yeah.
You all did some stuff where you all talking about that. I thought that was cool. I think I referenced that later on. I ended up playing a few concerts with the Blind Boys and doing a couple
Yeah,
of
of
Really?
videos
course you did. Yes, I
like
mean,
years later.
dude,
And I was
I want some of their vinyl albums, but they're so expensive.
Are
I've
they?
got I've
yeah,
got one 7 inch with their it's another band on the other side. That's all I have is one song on
Hmm.
vinyl.
yeah. My friend Austin is from Louisville. He moved to Nashville years ago and started playing with the Bobby Jones show. And then from
Oh
there,
wow.
he's been like the Blind Boys drummer for at least 15, maybe more
Oh,
years.
that's
Dang.
awesome.
So that's how I kind of got in with them, and that's been an amazing experience working with them every once in a while. But yeah, like I listened to some gospel, but I gravitated towards metal because gospel was all my mom and dad listened to, especially my mom. So I was like, ah. So I missed the whole Blind Boys era until I saw it at an HM, and until I got the music to play for them. So I
So
thought
you're
that,
telling me HM turned you on to the Blind Boys of Alabama?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a
Of
cool story.
Yo,
Yes,
here's
indeed.
another one.
I
Jeff
didn't know.
Sheets. When you all did the top metal albums of the year, you all did, like each staff member did them or whatever. The year that was your, I think, 10th anniversary, Jeff Sheets did one, and among his favorite albums, so-called metal albums of the year, was Take Six, He Is Christmas.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I showed
You
that to
did.
the guys. I'm
That's
really cool
awesome.
with some of the Take Six guys for
Oh, you
sure.
showed them that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I showed them that, man. But yeah, like very, very crazy stuff through the years. Very cool stuff. Um, like I said, there's just so much to say about that. I just appreciated it all. One thing about the articles. That's how I was going to talk about the articles. So there's a few articles that just really come to mind right now that I think about that like they just stood out. One of those was the Tourniquet interview after like everybody left the band. It was just like Aaron, Luke, and Ted, like that
Mm.
interview. And I think Carla China had just come out. There's
Yeah.
another one that was when Doug Pennick came out. Like that was a very, you know, just a heart wrenching and very just controversial issue. And then I would say another one was like as I talked about, I was in lust control, but also the Christians and cursing issue. I mean, like that subject when you all tackled that.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing. I think I'm gonna go with that one for a second. Like, in the middle of doing that one, like what was that like, and what kind of backlash that you all get from that as far as letters?
That was in the early '90s, if I recall.
Hmm.
So um, that was, definitely causing a stir, and it was like a big deal if anybody ever said anything like that, like in concert or on an album. It was kind of
Right.
unheard of that would happen. I think sometimes Sunday said the word "ass" on some
Yes, they sure did.
hidden tracks at the end of one of their albums. Um, but that was kind of fun, just to kind of get a bunch of different musicians and stuff involved, like Pastor Bob and maybe some of the guys in Vengeance, and I remember some of the people from Galactic Cowboys, I think, were in that article.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and that was kind of fun. Wasn't easy to stick your neck out sometimes with some of those
Right,
issue-oriented articles.
right.
Yeah, I bet
Yeah,
you didn't print some of those fan mail that came in that you. I mean, I know you only had so much space, but I'm sure there were some you're like, nah, we're gonna pass on that.
Maybe I've saved. I think I've pretty much saved all the mail that has ever come in for both
Oh,
Lust
that's
Control
cool.
and Heaven's Metal. So it's part of the stuff that I hoard over at the HM Ranch that I'm not sure what to do with, or how to get rid of it, or save it, or what.
We're
Oh
going.
man, yeah,
It can be part of Pastor Bob's Sanctuary International Museum.
There you
yeah.
go.
There we go.
That's coming one day, I believe. Um,
Yeah, that'd
so
be epic, dude.
walk us through. I mean, as short as long as you want it, just through the transition with the name and the style and there was a point where you had to add more staff, right, to keep this thing running. It was a I don't know if it was a well-oiled machine. I wasn't there, but you had all these moving parts and a lot to keep up with, and deadlines to hit and all that.
Yeah, that was quite a bit. At our peak, we had like five uh, paid staff, and then we had interns all the time too, which is another really really cool part of the magazine. An intern would be able to come in for 2 months and see the beginning and end of one magazine issue production. They would be a part of real time decisions over what was going to be covered, what was going to be in it.
Yeah, that's
They would
cool.
do real interviews, real album reviews, real layout and design stuff. They really came away knowing what it took to put out a magazine when they were done. But but gosh, back in the style changes, it's a funny story. It involves mortification. I was at the Frontline Intense Records, Alarma Records offices in, I think, Newport Beach, California, at midnight on a weekend. I had traded some advertising space in exchange for being able to use their video toaster production facility where I could make and edit videos for the
Okay.
video magazines. And I was working on volumes 2 and 3 that weekend. And a guy named Michael Sean Black, who was one of the A&R guys, comes in there around midnight or something. When I'm in there, I didn't expect anybody to show up while I'm editing a mortification segment of all things. And he goes, Doug, you should change the name of your magazine to HM. And I was like, speaking of cussing, I wanted to drop an F bomb on him. And that was, I had kept my tongue pure, and I wasn't really struggling with cussing at that time. And but I felt so angry that he would even dare bring up the idea of changing the God-given name Heaven's Metal to anything else. It's
Sure.
like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
really struck me like a slap in the face. It's like, what? How dare you? And I think I responded calmly and whatever. He didn't know what was going on in my heart and my mind at the time. But I was like, oh, dude, I can't believe you said that. But it made sense because, like people from Australia and England, they like to abbreviate things.
Yes,
Like
they
people
do.
from Australia, they call relative
100%.
they call the university uni, and
Yes.
they would call Heaven's Metal HM.
Yeah.
And so the letters to editor, people would say, "Hey, love the new issue of HM," or "In the last issue of HM, you did this, blah blah." So it was already being thrown around as an acronym, and HM could still stand for Heaven's Metal. And so the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And at that time, which was 1993, I think, um, metal was going through a metamorphosis. I mean,
Yep.
Nirvana had come in. Bands like Winger had been humiliated with the little Winger T-shirt that Stewart wore in a Beavis and Butthead cartoon.
Oh,
Their
poor
career was
Winger.
over by a cartoon. Entire labels had dismantled their metal divisions. They had A&R people in charge of signing metal bands, press people that were inside of, and radio people that were in charge of calling the metal radio stations. Those all people got fired. Record stores took their metal section and whittled them down to like nothing, or removed it. Radio removed metal from its format. Metal was
Such a
like
sad time.
a dead weight. And so the name Heaven's Metal might have been, this was the thought, might have been a detriment to more ad sales. Like at the
Yeah.
time, we were getting ads from Epiphone Guitars, which was like a subdivision of Gibson, Charlie Stringer Guitar Strings, and a couple other places. And so we're starting to expand our advertising beyond just the Christian record labels and Christian T-shirt companies and all the underground bands that were selling stuff. So the thought was, that the word metal, not the word heaven, but the word
Right.
metal was kind of a weight around our neck that was kind of hurting us instead of helping us as a business. So I decided, okay, I'm going to change the name at the 10-year anniversary, 1995. So I guess this was like 94 when we were having this conversation, maybe. Um, but in 95, when we had the 10-year anniversary, which had a centerfold poster of Jason Martin of Starflower 59.
Okay.
For
Okay.
goodness sakes, talk
Yeah.
about, opening the door for
How
different styles of music. This
how
is
non-metal
shoegaze
can you
stuff.
get?
Yeah, that
Right.
was the poster for the 10th anniversary issue. But and then that was issue 54, issue 55 and 56, the September, October, and November, December issues that closed out the year 1995. Had the new logo, the oval of HM, but on top of the
Yeah.
oval it said Heaven's Metal, and those two
Okay.
issues were like a transition. And then
Yeah.
in January, it was just the HM logo, and Michael Sweet was on the cover of that issue of all people.
Yeah.
But so we navigated those waters, like I said before. The electric guitar is like a central piece to all the music we're covering, whether it's indie rock, this lo-fi stuff like
Yeah.
Joe Christmas, or some really mellow stuff
Yeah.
like Danielson Family, um,
Yeah.
shoegazer to all kinds, to grunge and whatnot. But the guitar was kind of kept its way through most of that, and some metalheads felt like, and they wrote in some nasty letters.
Oh
You have
yeah.
Really?
betrayed heavy metal. How could you turn
Oh
your
no.
back on metal, Doug? And blah blah blah. So I had to face the heat of all that, but I knew it was kind of the right decision to make, and and it turned out to be a good decision because we
Sure.
kept growing, and we still covered metal. But a lot of people probably were mad about it, but that was happening everywhere. I
Yeah.
think Headbangers Ball got taken off the air eventually. And stuff like that.
So you never once thought we should call it Heaven's Music?
Never came across.
Oh, that's probably a good thing.
There was a Christian hip hop magazine in Austin, of all places,
Call it
that
Heaven's
used
Hip
the
Hop.
name Heaven's Hip Hop.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
They
I
did an
called him up one
advertisement in
time
there.
because he people just assumed it was part of the Heaven's Metal empire, just
Oh,
a off
interesting.
branch, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. So I made him put
Yeah,
some disclaimers in there that said we love each other, but we're separate.
yeah. I'll
Yeah.
never forget seeing the Heaven's Hip Hop ad in Heaven in HM. I definitely subscribe to that also. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually got Feed magazine. Do you remember that one?
yeah,
That was a
Yeah.
whole
yeah.
hip
I have
hop.
some. I still have some Feed magazines.
My
Sure.
wife one year for Christmas bought me like every magazine they released. I got the whole collection.
Nice.
Nice. Nice. Man, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so speaking of, that's something else I wanted to talk about. Of course, at some point, all the major metal magazines started like just kind of shutting down or whatever. And I know that obviously you all went through that transition also. But I think something that really foreshadowed that actually was something that happened with Heaven's Hip Hop. Nolly Williams, who ran that magazine, also ran Breakthrough Records, and they
Yep.
produced like so many. I would say they were like the Christian equivalent to like No Limit Records with Master P, or like Cash Money with like Lil Wayne and the Hot Boys and stuff like that. And they were, they disbanded, did Grape Tree. I think they expanded for a little bit to include more artists besides like the typical stuff they were doing. But shortly
Yeah.
after that, the whole thing disbanded. And I think one of the biggest things they were saying is just like streaming happened, and just so many other things that just made it impossible to continue in the way that they were, making the money that they were making for sure. So like, how did that affect HM magazine? Like just the streaming, you know what I'm saying, and then also like just what was happening as far as print for other magazines.
Yeah, that was. It was hard to see the writing on the wall because 2008, when the housing crisis hit, and
Hmm.
when Napster, I think, hit kind of around that time.
Yeah.
Well, I think Napster. I think Napster might have hit as early as like 2001 2001 or
Yeah,
2002.
yeah. The
But
Metallica controversy was like 2001 ish.
okay, so by 2008, which is when a lot of that stuff had already died. Like,
Hmm.
well, but going back to 1985, in 1985, Spin, uh, Metal Edge, Alternative Press, and Heaven's Metal all started that year. And by
Wow.
the time we rolled down to these, Metal Edge and Spin had gone out of print.
Oh
Alternative
Mm.
wow.
Press is still alive, and Heaven's Metal went out of print, or HM went out of print in 2013.
Right.
But
Hmm.
uh, but anyway, in 2008, when a lot of that stuff was happening, and the U.S. economy was going downhill, HM was still peaking. We were still getting distribution everywhere. Our Most magazines have a sell-through rate of between 50 and 55%, and
Hmm.
that's successful. Like Time Magazine knows that if they put 50 copies on the shelf uh, and they sell out, that's not something to be happy about, because when they sell out, there's no copies to sell. And for the other few days of the week when there's nothing there, they could have sold more. So if they put 100 copies on there, they'll sell 75. So anyway, they successful magazines, they have that sweet spot of about 55%. Well, ours was always selling between 75 and 80% of our copies, so we were
Wow.
very successful, uh, and we were able to get a lot of notoriety. Other magazines were giving us coverage, and we were still selling all kinds of ads in our magazine. We were selling $30,000 in ads in every issue of HM.
Wow.
Uh, so 2008, even though there was some writing on the wall, it was hard for me to see it. Uh,
Hmm.
but around in 2010, we had our 25th anniversary issue, so we're still peaking. 2008, 2010, but 2011 came along, and instead of that 30,000, we only sold like 15,000 for an issue,
Wow.
and then the Chariot issue was like 7,500 in ads, and then the next issue climbed back up to 15 or so. But it was uh, it was not looking good, and the reason for that was because streaming, labels were going out of business, and the Christian music industry was taking a dive too. And so as a businessman, you're supposed to be able to see the future and keep your eyes on the horizon.
Right.
And I didn't do the best job of that. Looking back, I might have tried to diversify into, like, I don't know, Sirius XM, or
Hmm.
fully trying to monetize some sort of website or online presence. But people expected to get their music for free and their music journalism for free. So it put a
Hmm.
lot of people out of a job, and it was kind of a difficult thing. It was kind of weird to see uh, a dream have to die. The dreams die
Yeah.
really hard, and
No
it was
doubt.
kind of like a God infused and God breathed and God blessed dream. So I got to live the dream for 28 years, and it was really cool to kind of there's a certain feeling when you can wake up and feel like I'm doing what I was created to do. And you
Yeah.
kind of feel like in that movie Chariots of Fire, it says, when I run, I can feel God's pleasure. Well, that was my life. I could feel God's pleasure, and I saw him move in
Yeah.
the scene, and he was doing things with Christian metal. But all that's kind of not an inkling of what it used to be. It's still alive, but it's not like a dominating scene like it used to be.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
just
true.
weird to see a season come to an end or make a change that abrupt and that sudden. For us, it was like 2011. Uh,
And then vinyl made a comeback. Who would have thought?
yeah, yeah. I
But
got rid of so many vinyls because I loved the CD format because it sounded
Yes.
so clean. I
Hmm.
loved it, and there was some albums I just gave away or got rid of or sold that I wish I had back.
yeah, that's such a sad story.
Yeah.
Uh,
I still have
so
a bunch of the originals.
yeah, oh, that's cool. Yeah, man. When I went to Immortal Fest, I went over to Brian Kemper's house, Rock for Life, Stand True, and
Yeah.
he's got like original, man. He's got some nice ones. I think he had an NIV, was it? And no, it was the Crucified. He has original, like he's got some nice ones.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Narrow Path Records.
yeah, like the Crucified is the band that really changed his life too. So um,
Yeah, love them.
but so okay, so I got Rock Stars on God, 3 volumes,
Yes.
and we're hoping there's going to be another one because there's so much
Yes, sir.
content.
Yeah.
So what's the difference in putting together a magazine versus a book and getting that released? I'm sure it's quite different.
Well, there's a lot of similarities, but and there's a few like rules, like the photographs for a book. You have to get permission and rights to have somebody's image in a book. And
Right.
one kind of a clever
Okay.
thing I did is I reprinted a page from Heaven's Metal magazine as
Yeah.
my photo because it's a reprint of what I have a copyright of.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like I needed to bet a new photo of Henry Rollins because I just
Ah,
used the photo that was in the magazine
nice.
for volumes 2 and 3. When volume 1 came out on a publisher, Relevant Books, and they had to go through all those hoops where they had to get for 20 of those artists, they had to get 20 photos and
Oh, wow.
releases on 20 images. But and then for the next one, I'm planning on volume 4, which instead of doing volume 5 after that, which will be like maybe, I think I'm just going to put all the rest that are worth reading into volume 4. So it'll be a larger volume than 2 or 3.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
but I got the cover design and I've got the articles chosen.
Super cool.
There'll be a couple new ones that go in there too, like Sabaton.
Oh man, I saw them open for Iron Maiden. That's actually a really good show.
I bet it
Hmm.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, who are some of your favorite, or I can even say, seemingly impactful um, artists or whatever that you interviewed for the so and so says, um, feature in Heaven's Metal, which of course turned into rock stars for God. Like, who were people writing in about a lot?
That's a good question. Um, some of the controversial ones, like well, my favorite has always been Peter Steele of Typo Negative, because
Hmm.
he had such a strong opinion. I go, what do you think of Jesus Christ? I think
Yes.
he was a fool. Anybody who would die for the sins of this world is a fool. I am 200 pounds of meat in motion. When I die, that's it. I'm gone. And
Right. Right.
that's such a, it's not like what I wanted to hear as a believer, but as a journalist, it was like, oh man, these are great quotes. Um, and then Henry Rollins was like practically threatening me, and I could almost
I
see
kind of
his
remember that.
invisible hands going to the phone to strangle me because
I
he
could
was
see that. Yeah.
not happy. And then Tommy Victor of Prong, who's in the Volume 3 issue,
Yeah.
he did not like the direction the interview was going, and really was like saying, "This is going to be over if we don't change the direction of this quick." And so that was always difficult because I always take it like we're live on the TV show right now, and if
Hmm.
I get you so mad that you walk off set, I've just lost the show. It's over. So
Yeah.
I felt the pressure to always keep it going, to always get back on track, and always try to talk about something beneath the surface with
Hmm.
those. Um, but yeah, it became the most popular part of the magazine. I guess when people got a new issue of HM, that's the first thing they would turn to. Who did he interview this time? Oh wow,
Hmm.
Dream Theater. What did they say? Or
Yeah, I
Living
remember that.
Color. And people said, you should make these into a book. So one day I finally did. It's like okay, and got them all collected and stuff, and shopped it around, and the first one came out, and so it's a lot of fun. It's learning how to do graphic design or layout using Adobe InDesign, which I've used for decades, every day of my life, pretty much.
Wow.
Um, doing a book is kind of made for books and magazines, so it's pretty easy to do that. Um, and but it's tedious because it's like this is like what a few hundred pages long, and I wrote a novel called Desert High, and it's got like 300 plus pages, I think, and just proofreading that is tiresome. It's a lot of
That
work.
Yes.
that's pretty cool though that you have enough content to do 4+ books though. That's
Right. Right.
awesome.
Right.
Did you do every one of those interviews, or did anybody else do a
Yes,
few
sir.
of them?
In the first volume that came out in Relevant Books, a couple of my staff people did one, like Jason Dodd, who was a managing editor for a while. He did Boys Night Out, and then this one guy named Phil Chalmers from I think Ohio interviewed Kirk Hammett of
Hmm.
uh, Metallica, and then David Jennison interviewed the guy from Bad Religion,
Oh
and
wow.
And somebody else wrote a book about that. Some professor at university decided to do a book about evolution and Christianity and using the Bad Religion interview and the pages of HM magazine as the text.
Interesting.
That's kind of fun. Got more
Yeah.
mileage out of it than ever dreamed.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
the latest few volumes, like volume 2 and 3 and 4, I'm just sticking to the ones that I did.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think two of my favorite features in those articles were Max Cavalera of Sepultura. That was an interesting interview. And he
Yeah,
was talking about his like just Catholicism and stuff. And he kept saying like, um, I believe Jesus is real. His spirit is always like, of course he's kind of trying to find words, English words, but he
yeah,
also
yeah,
his spirit is always, and I was just kind of cracking up over there. And then also King Diamond, like, um,
yeah.
talking about Satanism and stuff. And, that was an interesting interview.
Yeah, that was fun. I remember one of the questions I asked him, besides spending the first 5 minutes talking about the Dallas Cowboys and Deion Sanders,
Yes, that's right.
he's a big fan. He lives in Dallas. But I asked him, have you ever felt uh, a supernatural power of somebody using the name of Jesus? Something. I asked him a question kind of like that, kind of. 'Cause I really wanted to know, like someone who's experienced the occult and has maybe conjured demons and whatever spirits. Have they ever experienced a Christian filled with the Holy Spirit, you know, coming in and having interaction with them? Because there's probably a power dynamic there that's incredible. He didn't have much to say about that.
That's awesome.
I interviewed a few satanic bands like Dimmu Borgir and
Yeah.
Cradle of Filth and and Morbid Angel.
Did,
Those
Yeah.
did
are
you have any anxiety about that, or was it just another day at work?
Yeah, I haven't a little bit of like butterflies or anxiety or
Yeah,
adrenaline going through whenever I'm because the kingdom of God clashes with the kingdom of this world,
mm,
and so I try to be aware or am aware or it's just kind of obvious that there is interplay there, and
sure.
so I kind of get sensitive about stuff like that, or I kind of pay attention to what's going on when that happens, and yeah, I try to definitely choose my words carefully because I think that in all of these interviews, there's the potential to lead somebody to Christ or to lead somebody away from Christ,
Mm.
or all in between, and so
Oh, that's a really good
uh,
point.
the things you say um, can really bring out some good, and that's kind of what I want to do. So I don't want to look back with regrets, like, oh, I wish I would have said this, or oh, why did I say it that way, or oh,
Sure.
why was I so offensive?
Oh,
Hey, that makes sense. It's really cool. No, I mean, it's a lot of history. I think that one of the things that's most important is that, like, even though you've been through various seasons, especially with the magazine, of course, and just the promotion of Christian metal overall, um, but also, even with the band, with Lust Control, and any of the other stuff you've been involved in, I think that the impact that you've made on the scene um, is undeniable. And I think that for many, many, many people, if there wasn't a publication like HM to promote in Heaven's Metal to promote music, um, there wouldn't be a scene, honestly. Like it'd be much shorter than
yeah.
just many people just would never be known. And I think that it cannot be understated, like the importance of the role you've played in that. And I think somebody like Pastor Bob can take that honor also because of his work with discipleship and stuff. But I think that, like, as far as promotion is concerned, yeah. And I know that, like, right now, we as the Christian Metal Group, we're like standing on your shoulders for sure with the
Yeah,
promotion. We're just
no
trying to
doubt.
take the torch, carry on your work for sure.
I mean
But
that's right. That's incredible. 40 years of
yeah,
Heaven's Metal, HM, Sanctuary
hmm
International with Pastor Bob.
yes,
Who Stripers 40 years.
Striper,
hmm
Saint, yeah,
Saint, yep, 40 years. I mean, it's incredible. That's it
right.
says a lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Praise
I
Uh,
mean,
God, it's been cool to see it happen.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So what's next for you? Like, what do you have going on like right now, and like what's next?
Well, I'm going to be moderating some panels at the Tom Convention,
Oh,
Oh
that's
which
good.
yeah,
there is a festival in Portland called Tom Festival that I went to
yeah,
every year for like 12 years in a row till it
right.
stopped.
Mikey's bringing it back, right?
Yeah, well, he's not bringing back the festival, but it's a convention
Yeah.
that's going to focus on us all hanging out together, like being to hang out with your alternative Christian rock
Okay.
stars, mingle with them, and have panels
Yeah.
where you can ask them questions and stuff. So I'm
I
gonna,
saw, I've been seeing that promoted pretty hard in the old Christian, or it's the old Tooth and Nail Facebook page.
Yeah, I
yeah,
might
yeah,
be there. So
Yeah.
cool.
yeah,
That
I
should be a
love
lot
it.
of fun. So that's coming up. Somebody offered us trying to get Lust Control to play a show in Chicago with Crimson Thorn opening up for us, and
Oh,
I'm not sure
nice.
we're going to be able to do that because our guitar
Yeah.
player doesn't want to do it. He's like done with music, and our
Oh
drummer
man.
just busted his ACL and
Ow.
his
Mm,
ankle, so he can't even
brutal.
play um, till January, and this show's in February, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Um, but I plan on working on. Well, I'm working with Chris Jericho, the the guy
Yeah.
that's the singer for Fozzy and
Yeah.
the
That's awesome.
WWE wrestler. We're doing a documentary on Christian heavy metal. The producer director who's doing the Striper documentary, which should come out late next year. Um, he's the one that's going to put that together. So we're doing
Oh,
interviews with people on that, and
that's super
uh,
cool.
yeah, that should be great and kind of a long time in coming,
Is that
which I've
going to
been
be
dreaming
like a
about.
DVD release or streaming only?
Streaming,
Okay.
you know, it makes sense to be on DVD as well, but
Yeah.
probably streaming first. I'd love
Yeah.
to see it in the theaters too,
Well,
and
if it
get
comes out,
get some runs at a festival.
if I can get my hands on a physical copy, I will.
I used to dream about like a Heaven's Metal movie. I just
Oh
imagine
wow.
like if you've seen Blood Good live and
Hmm.
Perform the Crucify,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
when Les Carlson has his back to the audience, he turns around. You act as though this man is inciting a rebellion. There's so much drama in that. I just always imagine that on the big screen and how cool it would be to have some of that concert footage of bands like that and to tell the story about just this whole scene.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of fun. That's in the works. And I want to do Volume 4 of Rock Stars on God.
That's awesome, man.
So who
All
knows?
right.
We got another issue of Heaven's Metal coming out.
sure,
Oh. All
absolutely.
right. All right. That's awesome. Y'all got something to look forward to there.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
the Christmas issue.
Physical print.
Yep.
Going to be sold all over the world. That's awesome. All
Cool.
right. I got five. These are quick answer questions.
Okay.
All right. What's your favorite cartoon?
Oh man, I don't know if I have one. The first thing that came to mind was the Jetsons, but that's not my favorite
Oh,
cartoon.
okay. Okay.
Uh,
Pass.
okay.
If you
I love it. So
well,
whatever.
we'll just go with the Jetsons in. If you could be in any movie, what movie would you want to be in?
That's easy. So, I wrote a novel called Desert High, which is about my experience as a high school football player at Desert High School in Edwards Air Force Base, California. In my
That's awesome.
senior year, the first round of the playoffs, we got horribly ripped off by the referees and the other team.
Oh,
Mm.
Everybody says, "Oh, we got ripped off," but the referees met with our coach the following Tuesday in Lancaster, California, and said, "We blew these calls. We're sorry."
oh, wow.
The other team ran two running plays in 6 seconds, and you
Yeah,
can't do that. There was no out of bounds, no injury, no incomplete pass, no penalties,
yeah.
no reason to stop the clock, but they did. And then the very last play, the quarterback just took the ball with both hands and threw it in the end zone like a basketball inbound pass. My best friend saw the ball coming to him, and he bats it down. Incomplete pass, game over, we win. And their tackle jumps on it. Fumble recovery in the end zone for a touchdown.
Oh,
So, the Air Force invents a time machine, and they're looking for a guinea pig to go back and fix a small, insignificant event like a high school football game and see what happens with the time space continuum. So, I get in this giant wooden crate that's surrounded by magnets and uses magnetic force to travel through time. I go back to November 1980, and I get to see myself as a 17-year-old, and I'm like a 40 or something. Now I'm 62, I get to see myself play. So I would love to be in the movie Desert High because this book is a book I had to write, and it needs to be made into a movie. And so
Wow.
the time machine breaks down, and and it's the playoffs. So if my mission is successful, which how do you change a football game? You talk
Yeah.
to the refs before a game? You can't go
Yeah.
talk to a ref before a game. I found a way to do it by posing as a principal of the school that was hosting the game, but that wasn't successful. But if we were able to accomplish that mission, that means it's the playoffs. We get to go to round two.
Wow.
So anyway, so my really old adult self and my 17-year-old self in the same place at the same time, watching my younger self play football. I would love to be in that movie. I think I would like to have Kurt Russell play the older me and like Zac
Oh.
Efron play the young me, of course.
Okay.
A
Okay.
handsome actor to play in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I could just be a an extra somewhere in the crowd.
Yeah. Well, that was deep and very specific.
Yeah, well, I've got an answer for you there. There it
No,
was.
it's all good. What is your favorite sport and team?
Nice.
Football, Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
I was a Texas Longhorn for 24 hours. I was a linebacker and a place
Really?
kicker in high school, and I got a tryout for the Longhorns, and I didn't do very well on my first official tryout. I had the whole uniform and everything in a locker.
Okay.
Next day I come to practice. I'll do better today, and my locker's empty. My cleats are hanging there, and everything else is gone. That's how they tell you. They don't come talk to
Oh,
you
wow.
and say sorry. So I was
Yeah.
a Longhorn for 24 hours.
That's interesting. Your coffee, black or with cream?
With cream, vanilla creamer.
All right. And let's see the last one, iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Okay.
Yes, for the win. For the win.
I've never drank the apple juice, so.
Oh man. Well, you're
Normally
missing
I
out,
would
bro.
go for the Android. The cheaper route would always be better, but I got started with the iPhone. It was like free for a 2-year contract with AT&T. So it was like
Dude,
they
they say
first one's free.
they say it's really difficult to switch between one to the other if you're used to a certain thing.
Yeah.
So, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
super nice. Yeah. Now what? If you don't mind, what part of Texas are you in now? Where are you located?
The Austin, Texas area.
Austin, Texas.
The
Okay.
live music capital of the world, baby.
Yeah. So you can get a lot of the SXSW traffic, whatever.
Yeah.
South by Southwest. I've been for that before to perform, but it's that traffic was insane. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God.
I used to enjoy that fest. They still have it, but I
Yeah.
don't go anymore.
I like the little gamer section. Like they have the like the little area where you just play a bunch of games, spend some money, and just play games for hours. Like that part is cool. And some
Yeah.
of the workshops were cool too.
Indeed.
So, yeah, okay, that's cool. Super cool. Well, cool. Well, that's I know Jimmy. I know you got a question. I got a question, and then you got one more question. So, let's get those.
Yeah, so tell us one thing about Doug that people watching this may not know.
Gosh. When you shared that question with me earlier, like this is one of the questions we'll probably ask you, I was thinking, well, that's where I'll talk about my novel, Desert High, and about being a football player
Mhm.
and that. But I've already shared that, so I guess I could share the time that I skydived when I was in college.
Yeah,
They had informal classes. You could do things like that.
as a class, that's
Maybe
pretty cool.
kayaking or something. So
Yeah.
we spent like 4 or 5 hours in the morning learning how to fall, how to land, how to jettison. If your first chute doesn't open, you have to get rid of it, and then you have to open the emergency chute, and you have
Oh,
to
wow,
punch
yeah.
yourself in the gut where the emergency chute is to make sure it comes out.
Oh, it sounds
And so
exciting.
we were thoroughly trained for like hours on end, and then we go up about 8 at a time in this airplane nearby Austin, and I think it was like 1,800 feet. I think is what we jumped out at. This was the old days, like in the 80s, when they had a static line. So they had this big long rope, basically. When you got to the end of the rope, it pulled the
Yeah.
chute for you automatically. It wasn't
Okay.
like a tandem jump now where you have somebody strapped in.
Right.
Anyway, so at the end of everybody jumping, they have the jump school, and they hand out certificates. And, you know, they're like, you know, let me grab something. Jay Goodwin, nice landing, you know, and Jimmy Sorrells, nice navigation. Doug Van Pelt, bicycle baby. That's what they
Oh,
said about me. Because when I jumped, when I got out there on the wheel at the edge of the wing when it was my turn, I had my hand on the wing, and I started looking down. And then when he said jump, and I jumped, I just forgot that I was a human being. I was panicking.
oh my
I was like a
goodness.
bicycle baby. I was like,
Do they
so
do they have this on video somewhere?
no, this is 1982, I think. So
They didn't have
Wow.
video in
yeah,
1982. Okay.
Right. He's like, okay, this didn't work. I think I'll start a magazine, right?
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, what is your favorite thing about being a Christian?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Maybe probably the presence of God. Uh, there's things that I believe in my head, and there's things about the stories of redemption,
Hmm.
and makes me cry. And I love to hear a good redemption story, and
Hmm.
evangelism and seeing people come to Christ gives me great joy. Uh, but experiencing the presence of God,
Hmm.
feeling like He's in the room right there with you, uh, that's when you say favorite thing, it gets very personal at that point, and it doesn't have to be a great theological answer. It's really
Right.
like your favorite. You like chocolate, and what do you like about being a Christian? Well, like the presence of God would be an experience like no other. I'd
Hmm.
love to share it with people.
It's awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. So, what can the Christian metal community do to help support Heaven's Metal and all the things that you're involved in?
Huh. Well, I guess a number of things. One is you could make yourself aware of what's available out there. Like check out the resources I've got. Like all the 28 years of publishing. Most of those magazines are out of print. You can't find them anywhere except like on eBay, and somebody sells it for like $30 or whatever. But I do have a handful of copies of magazines, some a couple dozen copies, some 5 or 10, maybe some more, um, of like around 2000 on, and I sell those in my store. You can get them, and I don't charge $30. I charge the cover price,
Yeah.
$3 and fifty
Well, that's
cents.
awesome. Thank you for
So
not
some of those
charging
are still
$30.
available.
Yeah.
And then the issues that are out of print, a long time ago, I put them up on there's a couple websites. One's called issue.com, and issue
Okay.
spelled ISSUU, and you can search for Doug Van Pelt or Heaven's Metal, and you can see 160 copies there. A lot
Nice.
of them are locked down because I got tired of their business practices, and so I canceled my subscription. But the magazines are still there. You can still see and read a lot of them. And there's another company I started going with recently called Flip HTML5, and I'll be sharing
Okay.
the links to those with
Yeah.
you later
Yeah.
and stuff.
Nice.
Um, and I've started uploading those photos or those magazines, because the first 10 years I've got on a DVD, like a PDF, a project that some guys did where they scanned every single page of all 54 of those issues for the first 10 years of Heaven's Metal.
And did that
And
Mm.
take
those will
did
get
that take
uploaded
like
on this.
54 years to do?
Yeah, I know.
Scan each one. Good grief.
Man.
But I'd like to get those PDFs up there available. And then, of course, the books that I publish, these are taken from the pages of Heaven's Metal magazine. And then Heaven's Metal magazine is still continuing with brand new, fresh album reviews and news and feature
Yeah.
articles and interviews with people. So and that's all free, just heavensmetalmagazine.com.
It's amazing.
Yes. Lots of content on there.
And so being involved, there's opportunities if you have skills and talent. We're not just going to say, hey, anybody that uh, likes rock music and wants to start writing for us. Well, if you're not a very good writer, we'll put you through our panel of editorial team, and you may get the thumbs down. You're not guaranteed a spot, but
Right.
there's room for opportunity to be involved, and we're not ruthless and cold-hearted. We can maybe teach you how to do some of this stuff. Some of this stuff's kind of easy, but if you've never done it before, a little training might help you. But so anyway, there's places to be involved with
Yeah.
Heaven's Metal. That's one way you can support. And then, of course, obviously, just I mentioned all those resources, finding out where those are, and then sharing the good news. if you like it, share it with somebody else, and they might
Yeah.
like it too.
That's awesome, man. Well, we appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Just getting to
Yeah.
learn more about you and getting to help
Absolutely.
promote the Heavens Metal magazine to maybe we'll get some new fans and somebody will go on Heavens Metal magazine that's not a believer and they hear about a band and they go check that band out that presents the gospel and that's their story. I mean, we don't know, but God can use anything, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
He's
awesome.
looking for
Well,
willing vessels.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's right. Well,
That's
thank
right.
you so much and
Thank you guys.
awesome.
Blessings.